All right, it's 9 o'clock. Seems 15, a couple more joining. Deidre, how are you? JW, how are you doing? Hello, Shaw. We have the stalwart crew
Morning.
here,
Come on.
the diehards. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Respect
Hey,
everybody's
Jeff,
time. Yeah, go ahead, Deidre.
before we get started, I just want to remind everybody that this call is recorded and posted on the member pages on the website, just to remind everybody what's recorded and what's not. So,
Thank you, Deidre. It always helps me to remind myself not to say something too outrageous.
I'm
So
in
thank
the
you.
career protection business.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. All right. So we're at the end of week 4, which is more or less the halfway point of session. That assumes that we end on time and all of that. But there are clearly some bills that are moving and clearly some bills that are starting to get some separation between the bills that are moving and the ones that aren't. And you'll see that reflected in this report. Um, as with prior weeks. Oh, hey, Bob. Welcome. As with prior weeks, it's organized by activity or latest action. So the bills that have had the latest action are up the top. I'm going to pause and see if anybody has any questions or comments before we get started. Otherwise, I'm planning to run through the tracking report and make some commentary as we All right, very good. So right here at the top is one of the bills that I've been spending a lot of time observing, and I've had some conversations with the department about it. This is the DEP package this year. They are running their own bill this year. They haven't done this for the last couple of years, so it was very interesting to see this come out. Most notably, it deletes the Environmental Regulation Commission. There are some provisions in here related to septic tank regulation and the completion of the transfer between the Department of Health and DEP. There's a handful of other, I would say, more technical or minor or cleanup provisions in here, but there's a good chunk of policy in this bill. So it's something that everybody should, I think, take the time to at least maybe read the, if not the entire bill summary, maybe one of the bill analysis reports that the staff do. If you have any specific questions about a provision of the bill, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to get that answered for you. This week, the bill went through both its first committee stops with some edits. The main edits are to remove the biosolids provisions. And the explanation from the bill sponsors was the fact that there are 2 sets of biosolids bills also moving this session.
Yeah.
There was a desire not to have to, keep up with all of that and reconcile potential conflicts. So they just stripped the biosolids provision out of the DEP bill entirely. So that was the change this session or this week. On one of the versions, I think it was, the House version, there is a small tweak that makes it inconsistent with the Senate version, and it adds a stormwater BMP provision for solar fields, which I think is kind of interesting. So do look at that if you're interested in that. I suspect that'll probably get added to the Senate version at some point as these bills continue to move through the process. Battery collection and recovery by McLean did move this week also at Senate EPC. It went through its first stop, so it's on its second stop. There were some minor technical changes made. I think in the House version, they haven't had any movement at all yet and has 4 committee references. So while it is starting to move in the Senate, I see it having a really difficult path in the House. Doesn't mean there isn't a mechanism to get it amended onto something else, including even potentially the DEP bill. So I'm not saying that this isn't going to pass. And there was a lot of positive discussion around the need for something like this. So we'll keep an eye on that. Biosolids management. So I mentioned there are 2 sets of biosolids bills this year. There's what I call the thou shalt take it to a wastewater facility bill, and that's this one. That's 1285 by Boyles and 1474 by Gates. which basically just says you can't land apply biosolids if there is a wastewater facility that is permitted to receive biosolids and it's within 50 miles of the wherever the biosolids are being generated or collected. So that bill is moving in the House and Senate. It's been through its first stop in the House and at least its first stop in the Senate. So I was there for that one. Yeah. So they're making some progress in the House and Senate. And we'll keep an eye on that. I'm going to talk about the second biosolids bill when that comes up a little later in the report. All right, water management districts. This is a bill that was a pretty close version of this was run last year. We talked about it last year. This imposes a lot of tracking and reporting on the progress of Everglades restoration projects from South Florida Water Management District to the legislature. It is moving in the Senate. There's no activity yet in the House. So it's on its last step in the Senate. There's no activity yet in the House. And Rep. Connerly is running the House version. I talked to Representative Connerly last week about this, and it's his opinion that kind of like last year, this is an issue that is more of a priority to the Senate than it is the House. So his bill may very well be one of those bargaining chips that doesn't move until the very end, maybe moves at the very end if the House wants something from the Senate or vice versa. So could be a bargaining chip. I hope that's not too controversial for the recording. I've heard him say that out in public. So that's just something we'll continue to watch. The conservation lands bill, that's 546. I think I know it's moving very well. I think it may have even passed one of the chambers. It's on the last stop in the Senate, and I think maybe it's the House version that's all the way through. Yeah, the House version has been passed completely through the House. So this changes the process for acquiring and disposing and exchanging of state lands. So if that's a topic that's of interest to you, do take a look at that. That looks like it's going to pass this year. Beach management has been moving. This changes the procedure for designating beaches as critically eroded and what steps the department does. It creates a process for local governments to push their projects ahead if they're critically eroded and they've set aside funds. So it's got some interesting coastal policy in there. The movement on the Senate is it's through its first stop. Excuse me, I think I read that too fast. I think it's through its second stop. Yeah, it's through two stops now and just waiting to be moved into its third committee. On the House version, it's been through one stop. So there's enough movement there where this has a chance of getting through this year. Nature-based solutions. This is new rules would require DEP to pass rules for nature-based solutions to improve coastal resilience. There's an insurance provision in here to do some kind of feasibility study on the value of nature-based solutions. So it's, again, interesting coastal policy. Do take a look at this. It's starting to move. It's been through two stops in the Senate, and I think at least one stop in the House. It's got one more stop to go on the House side, so that's also looking good. All right, so coral reefs. This bill was called surface waters until last week. It went through its first committee stop in the Senate. I was there. The seaports had some concerns about this bill because it did change the way dredge projects had to have turbidity monitoring done in a specific way. There was some concerns about that by the seaport community, but that provision got stripped out of the Senate version, and it was passed unanimously through its first stop. This does designate coral reefs as critical natural infrastructure or something like that. There's some new words of art around the value of coral reefs and declares their preservation and protection to be in the state interest. It doesn't do much more than that in its current form. The House version hasn't moved at all, but the movement in the Senate and stripping out that provision may allow the House version to start moving. Waste facilities. This is a waste to energy issue in a specific location in Southeast Florida. I was at the Senate committee where this was discussed. It's clearly a local concern, but it is starting to move in the Senate. Went through its first committee stop this week. The House version has also been through one committee stop. So if that's your issue, or if you've heard about that, just keep an eye on that. It'll be on this list. And here's the House companion right here. All right, Connerly's PFAS bill. So Rep. Connerly has a PFAS bill. It has been through its first two committee stops. It's moving. I think it's likely to pass this year. I think there's some good policy in there. It also contains a small biosolids provision, so I'm just flagging that in case you're thinking this just has to do with standards or PFAS itself. That there's a connection between PFAS and biosolids in this bill. What it does is it phases out the use of firefighting foam that contains PFAS by specific dates, and helps, and that's intended to of course phase it out so it's not being used anymore. But also there's some supporting policy in here to help firefighting stations convert to the new PFAS-free firefighting foams. And then the biosolids provision has to do with testing. So if you're a wastewater facility and you generate a certain quantity of biosolids on an annual basis, then it would require some PFAS testing. So that's a new thing. It's something that Rep. Connerly feels very strongly about, and he's done a good job defending that. There have been a little bit concerns about, the potential implications of learning you've got PFAS in your wastewater. But again, I think he's not afraid to discuss that and not run from the kind of the head in the sand approach. So that's moving in the House. The Senate version, I think, last I checked, it's also on the last stop. So that's looking good for passage this year. If I'm clicking, if you see this little pop-up screen that's popping up, this is how you can check yourself if you want to see where something is, or you want to look up the bill text or any amendments. So this is a pop-up that you can get if you click on any of these links. All right, the DAX bill. This was moving very well, and I think is on the last stop. Yep, last stop in the House and in the Senate. And it got temporarily postponed at the Senate Rules Committee last week. And there was a little bit of some chatter online about maybe some infighting between Senate leadership. That has not been sorted out yet. So there hasn't been any movement on the big DAX bill. Or they're sometimes referred to as the Florida Farm Bill. There's a lot of things in this bill, all around or adjacent to the agriculture sector, but also some other, DAX related issues like concealed weapons permits, and again, it's a big comprehensive omnibus bill. I suspect once they get whatever their issues are sorted out at leadership, that will get through and pass. Here's the House companion of the DEP bill we already talked about. The septic tank permitting bill was moving along pretty well and is on its last stop in the Senate and last stop in the House. So it's looking good for passage. This is the bill that separates out or bifurcates the permitting process between building permits and septic tank permits. So it does allow a building permit to be filed separately and removes any requirements to have a septic tank permit before you can file a building permit. So it's been described as a reg reform, speed up permitting times type of issue. I did note that there is at least one of our firms down in Southwest Florida that's very familiar with this issue, wrote a letter to the sponsors that describes a potential, some conflicts that can come out of this. If you don't have a septic tank permit and you start filing your building permits and you lock in your building layout or your building configuration only to find out later that your septic tank permit can't be issued because it doesn't meet the setbacks, that does present a problem. And that problem was expressed in writing from one of our member firms, but it doesn't seem to have change the trajectory of this bill yet, by just noting that for interest. The infill redevelopment bill is is a bill that is ostensibly to increase the opportunity to do additional infill development, add more residential units. It's intended to address, affordability and provide more housing by lowering some barriers to local permitting. So this is a local planning and zoning type of bill that there aren't really any direct environmental implications, but there are some references to brownfield designations. And so we flag this just for folks that do track brownfields issues. It I think moved one stop in in the House, and it has not moved at all in the Senate. Um, oh, forgive me, excuse me. It did move one stop in the Senate. It looks like it's scheduled next week. So we'll keep an eye on this bill. Brownfields Association is also watching it closely, and I think the League of Cities has got some concerns about it. So probably see some changes to that bill as it moves forward. All right, here's the first of the second set of biosolids bills. This one is more comprehensive. It's not just you shall dispose of it in a wastewater facility. This one has a lot of implications around fertilizer application, the requirement to go to class AA, which is a category of biosolids that's received enough treatment to be called fertilizer. It's got lots of implications related to the use of biosolids in agriculture. So a lot more policy needy, a lot of things in there for the ag industry and for the biosolids industry. This bill is also moving. It's on its last stop in the House, and that last stop hasn't been calendared yet. And in the Senate, it's on its second stop. So that's looking pretty good. This is the companion of the conservation lands bill I mentioned at the outset. The release of conservation easements bill, I think it's only moved one stop and then got stalled. Yeah, it's one stop in the House, and I think maybe no activity at all in the Senate. Not looking good for passage this year. So we're starting to get to, there'll be a few of these bills now where its path is looks really difficult at this point. This is the House companion of the septic tank permitting bill we already talked about. Here's the Senate companion of the biosolids fertilizer bill we talked about. All right, here's a new bill. This is Standards for Stormwater Systems by Burgess. This is one where we've expressed some concerns as an organization about the two main provisions of this bill, which would impose DOT specifications on all municipal stormwater system components. So that's just pipes and inlets and structures. A lot of concerns from the stormwater municipal sector. So the Stormwater Association, League of Cities, Association of Counties, those have all been conveyed to the sponsor. The sponsor seems willing to make changes. Haven't seen any edits yet, but it has made through one stop in the Senate, looking for maybe some breath of life if the sponsor is willing to make some major changes to it. Otherwise, it'll probably die. It has not moved in the House at all, so it's looking like a dead bill. This is the Gates Biosolids Management companion we talked earlier about. Former phosphate mining lands is one of these orphan bills. So McClure has this all the way through the House, but there's no Senate companion. So it's interesting to me because it's just out there as an orphan with a completely passed through the House, but without a Senate companion. It would need to be amended onto something else and at least heard in one committee. I think that's the procedure for getting this picked up in the Senate. So it's running out of time for this to be picked up anywhere. It could get picked up potentially on the DEP bill, since that's a kind of a multi-subject generic environmental bill, and this has an environmental component to it. But anyway, we're keeping an eye on this. in case it gets picked up and moved somewhere. There's the DAX bill, the Senate companion. Blue-green algae task force bill has not had any movement. There's no House companions. That one's a non-starter. Stormwater treatment, we've talked about a couple of times. The Environmental and Water Resources Committees have done a bit of a deep dive on this. It's got problems because it removes a provision of the stormwater rule that has been in place since at least 2006 and replaces the ability to do compensating stormwater treatment with stormwater, engineered stormwater systems, and makes that makes it so the only way you can do compensating stormwater treatment is through the new category of facility called a water quality enhancement area, so a nature-based solution. So it is taking a tool out of the toolbox and makes it so there's only one tool for compensating stormwater treatment. So I've expressed a lot of concerns with the sponsor, been working with the sponsor and the bill proponent to try to come up with some compromise language. There hasn't been any compromise reached thus far, and this bill is scheduled to reach its second committee stop next week now on Tuesday with no amendments. So it's still the original bill. I'm starting to be more concerned about it on the Senate. The good news is on the House, it still hasn't moved and hasn't been calendared for anything yet, but the clock is ticking on this, and we'll be watching it closely. All right, so the reg reform or reg preemption bills, land and water management by Maggard and water management by McLean. There was some early movement, but on the House version, it went through one committee. It was on party lines, still a lot of concern and controversy and kind of teeth gnashing about it. But this, as originally filed, would have preempted all local government environmental regulation of every kind, preempted it to the state. It did get amended down to just wetland setbacks. So the only thing that would be preempted from local government to the state would just be any wetland setback regulations. But it's still controversial and is not moving at all in the Senate. So we'll keep an eye on it. That's the stormwater treatment companion we already talked about. And now we're getting to the point in this report where there's no companion and probably no chance for any of these bills. So the data center bill has no companion, hasn't had any movement. The other PFAS bills have had no movement at all. And all the rest of these down here have had no movement. So I would say no chance. So I'm going to pause there with 7 minutes left and see if I can field some questions. No Stump the Chump this week?
Hey Jeff, it's Will at CFX.
Hey, Will.
Can you go back to 848 real quick
Sure.
and walk me through that one more time? Sorry.
All right. No problem. It's complex. So this bill is described as a water quality enhancement area bill. And water quality enhancement area is a new category of water quality mitigation bank that was first put in statute in 2022, then amended in 2023, and still cannot be done yet because the law requires that DEP complete rulemaking before anybody can go build a water quality enhancement area. So that's the backdrop on water quality enhancement area. It's a nature-based solution to improve water quality, and it does create a provision for generating water quality credits. And so it's got a good purpose. It would, once the rules are done and once water quality enhancement areas are permitted and up online, within their service areas, people who need water quality credit, so think, about your ERP project that has the new stringent stormwater criteria and you are short some of your required nutrient load reduction, you could buy, once the WQEA is online and available and in your service area, you could buy your whatever your shortfall is from that permitted water quality enhancement area. So that's a good thing. Nothing wrong with that. This bill creates a problem because it says all compensating stormwater treatment has to be done in a water quality enhancement area. That's the problematic part, because compensating stormwater treatment is a provision that has been available to engineers for at least 20 years, is in the current rule. I'm using it with my stormwater company to provide extra stormwater treatment in one permitted facility and transfer some of that extra treatment to another facility in the same watershed. That is allowed under the current rule. It is not water quality credit trading. It is stormwater treatment to stormwater treatment offsets. And that's allowed under the rule. It's called compensating stormwater treatment. And this bill says you can't do that anymore. You have to use WQEAs.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Jeff, this is Bob Higgins. Did
Yes, sir.
anything come up on the data center?
No movement and no house companion. I think we are in the clear for the data center issue this year.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions? All right. Well, I will give you all 4 minutes back in your day and wish you all a very happy weekend. And we'll see you next week at the end of week 5.
Thanks,
Jeff.
Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.